This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to sit down with the owner of the Bottom Feeder, and we're going to discuss some of the updates to the Bottom Feeder. I normally don't do this at the beginning of the podcast, but I'm going to outline what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about the history of the Bottom Feeder, the new features, a new cord connector, a new magnetic switch which is coming out soon, the new wheels, the new flaps. He's going to also address some battery issues they had between September 2024 to January 2025. We're also going to talk about ways he's come up with to give you more battery life and runtime, which is the 2-pack Bottom Feeder that he has available. Also a new plug-in feature, so you can plug in the Bottom Feeder to an outlet or to a AH battery. And then we're going to also talk about the Bottom Feeder backpack. And then in part 2, we're going to talk about the new Bottom Feeder model that's coming out very soon called the Shrimp, and it's a smaller, more compact bottom feeder, so you definitely want to tune in to part 2 as well. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy coaching program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support. From me, I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. So I'm joined today by Glen Heffernan. He's the owner, creator, the mastermind behind one of the most popular vacuum systems in the pool industry today. How you doing, Glen?
I'm doing okay, Sir David. How are you?
Good. Why don't we start with just a brief overview of the reason why you started the Bottom Feeder or created it and your history in the industry.
Been a pool guy for 25 plus years. Worked out of the San Fernando Valley in California up till about 3 years ago when I moved to Las Vegas. But I remember in the early days doing pools, it was just always that when I'd go to the vacuuming the pools thing, and it's big with a lot of my customers. I had, a pool company. I had 4 techs working for me at one time. And for all of those of us who have tried to grow a big company, it can be hard because when your techs drop the ball and stuff. Most of the complaints you'd get is like, oh, they didn't do much or didn't do enough. They didn't vacuum. We got a lot, I bought a, one of the other brands. I had a Power Vac and I had a Hammerhead and stuff. And I remember it was almost always 2 trips from the truck and everything. And then I started watching too much Shark Tank and looking for something. And I thought, man, if I could just invent something between those big vacuums on a cart and the little dust busters on a stick, that just have a coffee filter to hold stuff. I thought there's probably it's a pretty big gap in there. So I started playing with the idea of just making a lighter weight version of one of the cart systems. Just using a smaller. Most of them had the 36-pound thrust trolling motor. So I started playing with the 18-pound thrust, and then I found a lighter one. And then one day I just bought a little lithium-ion battery and pretty much duct taped it to my pole with a little cable. I'd been buying these little bits and pieces from China trying to make something work. I put it in the water and I started vacuuming, and it was just like, oh, that's it. There was no cords in the way because I had commercial accounts that had lane lines in them, and I'd always have stuff. And it's always when you're going around with the big battery, all of a sudden you're snagged up on something or you're tied up around with that cable. And I thought, oh, this is the way. It has to be this way. Even though as I was watching, it was like a $200 battery, and it was just the little bubbles are coming out, and I knew it was a one-time use $200 disposable battery. But that's when I changed my whole direction. Instead of trying to reinvent what was out there, I sort of started trying to get something where we could have the battery pack sort of on the pole, semi-free floating, so it doesn't restrict the pole movement much. And that got me into that. And I flipped it over, so I had to redesign the propeller because they had all the original ones were just using trolling boat motor propellers where they'd cut it off, in the early days. So I flipped it over, but then I had to redesign the whole propeller, and that took about 100 and some 3D prints to come up with that one. So then it's got to the point. So now we can actually vacuum down into 3 inches of water because of that, because it makes it better. But it was just basically I was looking for something better for myself, and then I gave someone to my brother's wife that I'd made this little plastic head, and it was just lighter and more portable. And then I made the mistake of trying to say I'm gonna get this on the market, and then so I've been a poor man ever since.
So that's a brief history of the bottom feeder and the evolution. Of course, every year you're thinking of something different, making improvements based on feedback. And let's talk about the current one. I dubbed it the 3.0. I think there's enough changes to call it that. You want to go over some of the updated features?
So basically, what we've had a lot of problems with these, the cables we use for hooking up, because in the early days we had the battery cable was actually part of the battery, but then if anything goes wrong with that connector on the end of it, you'd have to send in your battery, and we'd have to change out the cord and all that stuff. So then we got a separate cord with all the stuff. And then there's an American manufacturer, and they would fall apart all the time. And then I found a place out of Mexico was making it for a company called Mencom, and theirs were a little better, but they still had no life in them. So I finally found a company here in the U.S., a little mom and pop, and they all you had to do is inside there was a little pop rivet sort of part. It would sort of fit in a sleeve. They had just put some glue in there. I'd been trying to get the engineers from these other companies to do that forever. They had already figured it out, so I started that partnership. And they also have that brass, chrome-plated brass sleeve sort of goes up a bit, gives a little extra support at that weakest point, because the very end piece in the cord is just press fit in there, and that would pop out. So that it's made the cord a lot stronger, more reliable. We have a little less troubles. And the company I deal with, when there's a problem, I can actually talk to the guy who owns the company. So that makes it a lot better. So the other thing I wanted to mention was we have been for some time working on a new switch. I've always kind of hated the switch we make, but nobody else made an underwater switch. Couldn't find one anywhere else. So it takes us one guy 1 hour in the shop to make one of those switches. So it's very difficult to make, and it's still pretty hard to press and stuff. And it's they've gotten much better now. We don't have to we're not sending back like we did in the early days. So they seem to be more durable. A lot of it was the cables. Once we improved the cable, that made it better. But we're working on another one that actually works with a magnetic switch. It'll be all sealed. It'll just have 2 glands on the outside that seal against the cable, and it'll sit right between your battery. And I'm just working on a mounting clip system for that to be able to clip it to your battery. So it's nice. It looks better. It's not hokey like using rubber bands. The wheels are now, I never thought there was anything wrong with those wheels. They're just polyolefin wheels. They didn't mark, and they seemed easy enough, but guys wanted softer wheels. So I finally found there's something called Santoprene rubber that's super UV resistant and chemical resistant and softer. So I tested that, just left it out in the sun for 6 months, and it didn't do anything, bad. And so I'm like, okay, and so we went to that with the softer wheels. Some guys like it. I don't see a huge advantage, but it's, they're kind of nice, and they probably will have a longer life, because they won't wear out. It's a bit like the softer plastic. They do wear down the little nubs over time. We've got the flaps on that was a problem. They would pop off all the time. So I found they finally came out with a new mounting style with the way the ribs are inside of the part that goes on to the frame. And that little thing, it's got just a little soft rubber, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. The old one just had, I think, 1 on top was all it had for like a tooth. And so the 2 on top, so it's really easy to put on, and then it stays on much better. And yeah, it was just one comment about your 3.0 video is that I watch you with the, because you have the flaps on the front and you watch it pushing a little rock out of the way. But if you have that much debris in your pool, you just take the front flaps off is the idea. And then it'll suck that all up into it. Battery stuff, issues for a while. And then of course, so if anybody who bought a bottom feeder from, I think it was late September 24 to late January of this year, we were using a new sealant to encapsulate the batteries just for safety. And then it seems after time they just start to fail, randomly. No epic fails, thankfully, but they just stop working. So so any of you guys that bought stuff around that time, maybe send an email, and we'll give you a discount on a replacement one. Or if it's within the year, we'll swap it out. If you want to, get rid of those batteries before they fail. But some of them they might not. It's not 100%. But there was just some strange thing going on. But at the same time, we were also my motor manufacturer that I've been using for years. That on Mission Impossible, we were vacuuming at 53 feet underwater for over a year. Have no problems with them. Suddenly, we had 2 batches of motors come in that were suddenly randomly failing. So that led to me figuring out how to test them in the shop. And I've learned more about motors now than I ever wanted to learn. And then we found another manufacturer, makes a pretty much identical motor, but just it seems to be a solider build and stuff. So that's been remedied. But it's so frustrating when your customers are, here's your new bottom feeder, and then it's like, wait, it's not working. And some of them are right out of the box. The test in the shop was run test would work fine, and then it wouldn't work. And it's just so hard on the soul, because being a pool guy, being a guy who I buy things and I want them to work, having to do that with our customers was, it's a little hard on the soul.
And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description.
But most of we will always warranty it. We'll always that stuff, but it's very frustrating when people they get a new unit and they still have to wait a couple more weeks till they can actually use it. Is tough.
Yeah, it's frustrating in the industry when the vendors drop the ball. It's happened across all manufacturers from Pentair on down. So it's understandable, but the bottom feeder is always on top of correcting things and making things better. Let's talk a little bit about the actual cleaner itself. Now, the runtime, I get this comment a lot. Well, 1.5 hours, that's much shorter than, the Riptide and other ones with the big marine batteries. However, if you use the bottom feeder, and by the way, I don't usually use the front flaps on mine, but for the video, I just left everything intact so that it looks.
No, I got it. See the whole unit. I was trying to beat you down, David.
Yeah, but if you ever use one of these things, let's say you just have a 15,000 gallon pool and it has the regular amount of debris in there, you can vacuum that thing out in about 3 or 4 minutes. So the runtime is almost optically, it's not correct when you're using it out in the field.
Yeah, and so, but what I did, and I should have done a long time ago, and I meant to, and I finally hired somebody who knows how to run businesses. That he's sort of giving me advice on how to be. I'm a pool guy. I'm an advanced. I can fix things, and all that stuff. I'm not a great business owner. I come up with great, I think are great ideas for stuff. I've made, a lot of my pool guys and friends of mine that are pool guys' lives better. But I've got somebody, and he's like, "You should do this." I'm like, "Yeah." I remember I found notes of that about 2 years old. Yeah, and so I just finally put out. So you can buy a bottom feeder with 2 batteries. You get $200 off. If guys follow you and use your $100 off coupon, that's $300 off. So $300 off your second battery, basically. And then you're at a 3-hour runtime. I don't think I've ever gone. It'd have to be pretty bad for a day to run to need more than that. But if people do have those places that have horrible storms and stuff like that, I'm coming up with another thing that I'm just my final power supplies just came in yesterday for beta testing. And I'm going to run it just like some of the competition does. So you can have the option of a cable running down to the head. And, I'm going to do two things. One is a power supply you can plug into a wall if you happen to have an account that has an easy power supply, and you have unlimited runtime. I was compensating for the voltage drop, so it was a little underpowered. But now the one that I got in, I think, should be plenty of power, and I'm trying to make it so you can even run up to 100 feet of cord. And but the way mine is going to work, I'm going to sell it with a 50-foot. But you can connect it to another cord. I might sell a 25-foot extension for guys that just need a little extension and stuff. But the idea is you can actually, it's all extendable. It just screws on, same sort of fittings we have on everything. So you have that option, or you have gator clips that you can just put on any battery and run any 12 volt battery will give you as much power as it has with the submersible battery, and then you have more runtime just to give guys more flexibility, so they never have to be down. In my head, it's like, okay, if I can get my truck close enough to the pool, I can hook gator clips onto my truck and still vacuum if I had to. And so I'm just sort of working on that. That's, that takes a bit. So those probably super optimistic would be in a month, but I think that's what we'll be beta testing here over the next few weeks, but probably within a couple months. I'm hoping by the time we do the big show in Vegas, the World Expo, backyard patio and pool, or pool spa and backyard patio one in Vegas. I'm hoping to have all of that, that stuff done. We're also, thanks to your suggestion, we're close on a carrying case. I saw you put that at the end of the video, the prototype for that one. And I think that because I actually got it, especially when I was in Florida at a show, a lot of guys they have penthouse pools and pools on the roofs of buildings and all this stuff. And I just never had done that math. So it's much easier if you can just carry it in a package, carry it up to your pools, and then you show in the truck. It is a little cleaner just to set it all as one piece inside the in the truck and everything.
For the average pool guy, though, the runtime is fine in my opinion. But you're making things for the kind of the pool guy warrior out there that needs that extreme runtime.
Basically, it's like anything people have brought up as concerns in the past. I try and find a way to, at least make it an option. I'm not going to change the design of the bottom feeder, but I'm going to make it so, okay, you have some monstrous thing that you just need unlimited runtime at, then you have that option. But for me, it's always been buy more batteries. That seems like a good solution, right?
Right. You can wear the batteries on your like a bullet vest.
Big exactly. Yeah, instead of shotgun shells, you got bottom feeder batteries.
That'd be cool if you could take the top off the tube and just slide the battery in. But
that was part of. Believe me, I've been down every one of those rabbit holes, like going, okay, because when you're having problems with stuff and you got to repair them or find what went wrong with them, and you got to take them apart every time. It's just like, oh. Interesting ride. I make a lot of money being a pool guy because I do the movie stuff. So I do big filtration systems for, the last one was Mission Impossible, The Way of Water, a lot of big water shows. And it just all that money goes into what my wife calls the wallet eater, not the bottom feeder.
Yeah, that's funny. People don't realize how hard it is to make a product that goes underwater. I mean, WaterTech, of course, knows this because they've had a lot of failures. So,
WaterTech's one of the reasons why I really got into this is I really wanted their thing to work good enough. But when 3 weeks in, you're like, okay, I remember I was rebuilding myself in the end. Like, I can get this little motor from China for 30 cents, and I can get, so I just buy a bunch of that. I was like, okay, I gotta come up with something else.
And as Glenn mentioned, there's a $100 off coupon available on my website for the bottom feeder. Just go to swimmingpoollearning.com. You'll see the bottom feeder banner. Click on that. You can order from their site, save $100 with the coupon code there. And if you're interested in learning more about the bottom feeder, there's also a new video I put up on YouTube. You can find that. It's called the Bottom Feeder 3.0. Also, if you're interested in more podcasts, part 2, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel Monday through Friday. I do podcast drops there, as well as on the website. There's a podcast icon you can click on you can download up to 1,700 podcasts and listen to those at your leisure as well. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week. God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system Portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.